Ferguson Word of Life trial. In studio right now is Micaela Parker with the Observer Dispatch. This was a bit of an emotional roller coaster without a jury, right?
Yes, it was certainly very.
And what is your take on why the defense decided to go without a jury? What were your thoughts? There's a gag order, so no one can really tell us.
Yes, which is very difficult concerning all the questions we have now. Every person has a right to a jury of their peers. Obviously, in this case, they opted not to. The reasonable conclusion we could make is that they thought a judge would do a great job of hearing their case
without the emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would assume that the fear would be, if I'm the defense, I would assume the fear would be that maybe where Dwyer would look at things by the letter of the law,
mm-hmm.
A jury might struggle with that and be caught up in the emotion of it all.
Exactly, and when you're hearing so much emotional testimony and the sort of allegations that were being brought up, who knows how they would respond.
So the other thing that they say is somewhat uncommon is the fact that Sarah Ferguson chose to testify.
Every defendant has the option to testify. A lot of them don't take it because you don't know how people are going to react to that testimony, and also, especially when you have a jury trial, which it wasn't in this case, but how a defendant acts on the stand can also have a lot.
She acted, we'll play some audio coming up, but she acted, she was tough. I'm not sure that is exactly, let's play just a little piece of some audio, and you'll hear exactly what we're talking about. This is her on the stand. This is Sarah Ferguson on the stand discussing the issue of the molestation. Listen to this.
Once your family was assembled in the small sanctuary, explain to the judge what went on. And I said, have you ever touched my children? And there was no response. I said, excuse me. I said, have you ever touched my children? And there was still no response. I said, excuse me, please. I said, have you ever touched my children? To which there was then a response, a positive response. He said, yes, he had.
So what did you think of that?
In cross-examination by the prosecution, when Sarah Ferguson was kind of going off, offering her own explanations for things.
So this was her opinion that her children had been molested.
Yes. And she had expressed that she hadn't been able to talk about this for 8.5 months, and she was very willing to talk about what she believed had happened and what she had observed.
Did she do herself a favor there? Maybe with a jury it would have been different, but how did you think that she came up? She came up very tough.
Yes, I mean, obviously she felt very strongly that she had believed this had in fact happened to her children.
And then when during the cross-examination, it did, and again, we can't get this from the DA's office and the prosecution because of the gag order. I know we can only surmise at this point, but based on their questioning, they didn't seem to believe her on the molestation.
There was a lot of questioning back and forth regarding, did you have any proof? If you had these kind of concerns, why didn't you go to law enforcement? And she had repeatedly stated she didn't have proof, but she did have this vigilance that led her to watch these teens and led her to kind of barricade that apartment she was living in.
She actually had it was padlocked, right?
Padlocked on either sides, and an additional door had been blocked off completely, as far as I recall.
And so if the prosecution is cross-examining and saying, really kind of building some doubt into her story, it would lead you to believe that the medical examiner, which I believe that testimony was placed in the trial, the medical examiner didn't find any evidence of any rape or any molestation.
Correct. Dr. Susan Blatt was called in. She had examined 5 of 6 children associated with the church. One of the children, the youngest, did not consent. In the same breath, while saying that she didn't find any signs, she also said that couldn't be ruled out completely because some forms of abuse don't leave physical signs on a child. And
they kind of went down that road, saying that it might not have involved penetration. Now, when the young man Christopher was on the stand, he was asked about the touching, inappropriate touching, and he made an admission there.
Yes, that was part of a back and forth, and Whitman posed to him, what things did you admit to that you didn't do? And he had said, I didn't put my genitalia in any of these children. And then in the same breath, she asked, what did you do? And he had admitted to inappropriately touching children. And it's important to note that there was no follow-up to that question. He didn't explain what he meant by that.
That's, I think, part of it is, I had an attorney tell me, well, because it's irrelevant, it doesn't matter. If you were dealing with a jury, maybe you would have tried to have appealed to their emotions, but ultimately it doesn't matter. Even if a child had been inappropriately touched, it does not give a person or a group of people the right to basically torture and beat someone to death, right? So, but that leaves us with a bit of an empty feeling because you wanted to hear more. I think we've been led to believe that maybe these two boys were beaten to the point where they admitted to things. And the other question is, what is the definition, by the standards of this church, what is the definition of inappropriate touching?
And we don't really know
that. There was no follow-up on that.
No, there wasn't.
Oh. So we begin, and I think somebody had talked to us earlier, much earlier, about the fact that as long as in her mind, Sarah Ferguson, and I don't think there's any doubt, it seems that in her mind, her children were molested.
She was adamant that she believed that the things they admitted to was true.
Yeah. How about the devotion to the pastor? The belief that the pastor has a direct link to God.
Yeah. So the relationship between not only the pastor and Tracy Irwin, which is the pastor's mother, Ferguson had described as almost a mother-daughter relationship. They had taken her in, and as such, she felt a great deal of respect and I believe affection for them. And then you get into the question of, can she talk to God? And Ferguson on the stand said she believed that not only could the pastor talk to God, but other people could as well, and God could speak through them.
Yeah. And let them know that this is what happened. Demons and exorcism, that was also part of the trial?
Yes.
So explain what happened there.
So far as exorcism, this is all things that Tiffany had messaged to Tiffany and Tracy in the months preceding the incident. She had detailed her concerns and suspicions regarding her brothers in a series of messages. And among those, she discussed going around with her younger sister, who testified in the trial, saying that she was casting out demons of perversion in rooms throughout the house.
Tell me, that is just old-fashioned religion right there. And it's hard to, but very impassioned. She was extremely passionate about it, believed 100%, and that had to play a role when she described what she did to her brother, and how she took the cord. She explained it right on the stand.
When she described the whipping itself, it was more of a direct reaction to what she had heard, so far as the allegations against her children.
Okay. And she used a power cord on his genitals.
Correct.
And she also, the mother and father, their testimony, was that powerful?
Yes, it was. Especially with Bruce, even during his plea allocution, the days beforehand, had obviously become very emotional when he was talking about what he did to his sons, expressed a true sense of regret over his actions.
Yeah. And then what comes next? So Sarah Ferguson has been convicted of manslaughter. She could face several years in prison.
The felony charges that she's facing, it's up to 25 years.
Okay. And so now, the fact that they didn't get a murder conviction, is it expected that will kind of follow suit with the upcoming trials? How many do we have coming up? How long before they start? I know there's a lot there. But
there is a lot there.
Yeah.
So we believed that there was going to be 2 trials in total, so Ferguson and Bruce's, as well as the remaining defendants. So that remaining 6 defendants we expect to see on trial, that could be split up, or that could remain as a group sometime in the fall, maybe September or October.
So we don't know if it'll be separate trials or
yeah, that remains to be seen.
We don't know. But the gag order remains in effect, which means no one can talk.
No.
And so what did you take away of this? This is just so bizarre, terrible, unfortunate. What did you take away?
So many things that I didn't expect to ever hear come out of anyone's mouth. I heard at that trial, and
Like what?
so far as the exorcisms
Yeah.
and sort of that line of questioning, and it was just very interesting to see the defense and the prosecution leave all these dangling threads in their witness testimony and then pull them all together in these cases at their closing arguments.
It was also, again, back to that, the alleged molestation. And I know that the DA, right from the beginning, was very adamant, saying there was no evidence of molestation. This was an interpretation based on their beliefs. It is interesting how they didn't follow up on that, on Christopher's testimony there.
But again,
Didn't matter.
it did not matter.
Yeah.
The fact was that these kids were beaten, and as a result, one of them died. So those allegations doesn't really have any bearing on that.
Interesting. All right. Well, listen, great coverage, Micaela Parker from the OD. We appreciate your time this morning. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks for coming in. Quick break. We'll do birthdays and then news coming up. 7:33 at WIBX.